Things just got real in Baltimore. Some people are saying it was drama. Others are denying everything. And now Todd Monken, the guy who was actually inside all of it, finally decided to speak up. You're about to see what really happened behind the scenes, no fluff. Exactly how it went down, because the pieces of the story are finally clicking into place. And there are details that completely change what a lot of people thought they knew. And here's the best part. We've got strong statements, emotional confessions from Monken, surprises, and big-name players directly involved in this whole conversation. If you think you already know why all this blew up, hold on just a second, because the next parts of this story might really catch you off guard. Stick with me until the end. There are things nobody had seen yet that are finally out in the open. When people started saying John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson didn't get along, a lot of folks immediately imagined fights, tension, and chaos inside the team. But Todd Monken, who was there every single day, basically said, "Relax, it wasn't like that." He spoke calmly, like someone who saw everything up close, and said the two talked, worked together, and respected each other. It's like when someone from the outside makes up a story about you and a friend, but the people who are actually there every day know what the real relationship is like. Monken explained that, to him, Harbaugh and Lamar always had a good relationship, even if it wasn't perfect all the time, because no relationship is. He spoke from the heart, saying he never saw fights, never saw dirty looks, never saw the two treating each other badly. He emphasized that coaches and players debate ideas, agree, disagree. That's part of football and part of life, not a sign of war or hate. You could feel he was looking back and thinking, people are saying things I don't even recognize. He also made it clear that a lot of what gets labeled as beef comes from people on the outside who don't know what day-to-day life inside the building is really like. You know when someone talks about your family without actually knowing it? That's basically what he meant. He said he always saw respect in the locker room, that Harbaugh treated players well, and Lamar never had a direct issue with the head coach. To him, all these fight stories sounded way more like rumors than reality. And the most striking part is the tone he used. It wasn't dramatic. It felt more like a genuine venting moment. He talked like someone still trying to understand where all these stories even came from. That opens up another big question. If the problem wasn't Harbaugh versus Lamar, then what actually happened inside the team for everything to end the way it did? After firing, another idea started spreading, that Harbaugh had lost the locker room, like the players didn't believe in him anymore. Sounds harsh, right? But then big-time voices showed up saying that wasn't true. Adam Schefter said a bunch of players went to see Harbaugh in tears, hugging him, thanking him, saying emotional goodbyes. That doesn't exactly match the picture of a coach nobody wanted around anymore. Think about it. If a team had really given up on its coach, do you honestly think players would be lining up to hug him and cry in his office? That's exactly what Schefter talked about, mentioning guys like Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, and other names everybody knows. It was about affection, respect, and relationships built over years. It shows a human side that usually gets drowned out by the loudest headlines. These different versions create a real clash. On one side, the rumor that Harbaugh no longer had the locker room. On the other, detailed reports of emotional farewells. You're stuck in the middle trying to figure out which one actually feels more real. And that's when you realize that the first story that comes out isn't always the fairest of the person being criticized. There's a lot behind the scenes that never makes it to the public. And when you put that together with what Monken said earlier, a totally different picture starts forming. First, he says there was no beef with Lamar. Then you hear players were crying while saying goodbye to Harbaugh. That leads to the obvious question. If it wasn't a locker room issue, then what really pushed Harbaugh out after so many years in charge? Here's where Todd Monken gets brutally honest. He looks back and says he could have done more. No excuses, no sugarcoating. He flat out admitted he didn't get as much as he should have out of the offense and out of Lamar Jackson. He clearly said he didn't coach Lamar as well as he could have, and that it affected the team's results. It's that moment when a coach doesn't run from responsibility. That hits differently because you don't often see an offensive coordinator admit failure like that. He could have blamed injuries, the schedule, or bad luck, but instead, he looked at himself first. He made it clear he feels like the offense came up short, especially after being among the league's best in previous years with him calling plays. It was basically like saying, I had the pieces, but I didn't deliver enough. When he says his relationship with Lamar could have been better, it doesn't sound like drama. It sounds like self-reflection. He recognizes he could have gotten closer, understood him better, adjusted the system even more to fit his quarterback. It almost feels like that inner conversation we all have when we realize we let something slip and wish we had another shot to do it differently. He doesn't paint himself as a victim. He owns being part of the problem. And that honesty connects everything we've talked about. Monken denies any rift. Schefter denies Harbaugh lost the locker room. And now the coordinator himself admits he failed in some areas. Bit by bit, it becomes clear what happened in Baltimore was way more complex than just conflict or locker room drama. And that complexity stands out even more when you look at the season context.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video. But before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
The Ravens' 8-9 record didn't come out of nowhere. It was a season full of injuries, with key players going down, and Lamar Jackson missing games because of a hamstring issue and also a back bruise. When your quarterback is on the field, everything changes. The offense loses rhythm, results start slipping away, and pressure builds. Missing the playoffs weighs heavily on a franchise that's used to being in the hunt. On top of the injuries came the drop-off on offense, which had previously been one of the best in the league with Monken calling plays. When that same unit falls out of the NFL's top group, the spotlight swings straight toward the coaching staff, especially after 2 seasons producing at a high level. And in Baltimore, after so many years with Harbaugh, any decline feels even bigger. Put all of that together: injuries, inconsistency, huge expectations, internal changes, and the front office's decision looks more like something that built up over time rather than one single event. There isn't just one villain or one exact moment where everything broke. It was pressure stacking up through the season until the organization finally decided to turn the page after 18 years with the same head coach. And turning that page doesn't just affect Harbaugh. It shakes the entire future of the team. When you move on from a coach that established, the philosophy changes, the staff changes, the routine changes. Even the way the locker room breathes football changes. And in the middle of all this total reset comes the big question about what's next for both Harbaugh and Baltimore. So what comes after all this? Harbaugh leaves after almost 2 decades in charge, and pretty much nobody doubts he'll land another job in the league. A resume like his doesn't sit still very long. Meanwhile, the Ravens head into 2026 with a brand new coaching staff, a new way of doing things, and one certainty: Lamar Jackson is still the centerpiece of the offensive plan. Monken is gone too, and he spoke with real emotion, saying he's going to fight like hell for his next job and will be rooting hard for the Ravens from a distance. That emotional tone shows how much he still cares about the team, even though he's not part of it anymore. He didn't leave angry. He left feeling like he could have done more and wants to prove it in his next opportunity. It feels like a goodbye without bitterness. For Baltimore, the challenge now is rebuilding without losing its identity. The team keeps Lamar, but changes who leads and how things are run. That opens the door to new ideas, new systems, and also new risks, because changing head coaches after that long is never simple. The same players who cried during Harbaugh's farewell will now have to adapt to a new voice in the locker room and a different daily style. And when you look at everything together, denial of a rift, conflicting reports, self-criticism, injuries, and big changes, it's obvious the story isn't over yet. What happened in Baltimore is going to spark more conversation in the coming months, especially when the new coach arrives and when Harbaugh lands his next job. From there, you'll really start to see how the choices made now will shape the next few seasons. After everything we've seen, it's clear Baltimore's story wasn't simple. Rumors of conflict, public defenses of relationships, emotional goodbyes, and an offensive coordinator opening his heart created something much deeper than just a coach got fired. Todd Monken's words show that behind the headlines there were real connections, respect, and accountability. Things you don't always see when the season's dust is still settling. The future is already moving. Harbaugh heads into his next chapter. The Ravens begin a new era. And Lamar Jackson remains at the center of it all with a completely different coaching staff around him. It's one of those moments when a franchise changes direction, but whether it was the right call or not will only be answered on the field. What we got today was a rare, honest look behind the curtain from people who actually lived it. Now it's your turn. After hearing what Monken said and everything that happened in Baltimore, do you think firing Harbaugh was the right move or a huge mistake? Your take matters here. Drop it in the comments and tell me what you would have done if you were running the franchise. I want to hear from you. So comment below and let's talk about this moment that could shape the Ravens' future for years to come.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.